So guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. So guys, De La Hoya obviously can't keep himself out of the Canelo business. He's actually had some stern words to say about this Bivol fight. So it says here that De La Hoya says that was the dumbest move from Eddie Hearn to put him in there with Dmitry Bivol. This is what Oscar De La Hoya had to say. The fact that the promoter of the event pushed Bivol on Canelo, it was the dumbest move in boxing history. It's not knowing boxing. Wow. It was the stupidest move. Whoever allowed Canelo to fight Bivol, I would have never allowed Canelo to fight Bivol. Look exactly at what happened. Canelo's on the top of the world. He's the king. Why fight a guy that if Canelo fights 10 times, he loses 10 times? And he has nothing to gain, nothing to win. Nobody knew Bivol. It's the promoter's job to guide a fighter's career. It's your job to know what's the best move, to see what the biggest and best fight for his career is. This was a terrible fight for Canelo's career. Styles make fights. Bivol's a great fighter. And nobody knew who Bivol was before the fight. People were not even thinking of Bivol. Okay. We obviously promoted Canelo and was successful. The next move, if I were his promoter, to go back to 168 where you're the champion, have Gennady Golovkin move up to 168, knock him out, and be on the top of the world again. Is there anything else he had to say? No, that was it. That's what he basically said. Now, this is very, for me, this for me is hypocritical from Oscar De La Hoya. I'll tell you why. Oscar De La Hoya, when he was fighting, he fought virtually everyone. If you guys remember, he went up and fought Bernard Hopkins. Also, when Oscar De La Hoya first started his promotional company and he was in charge, Oscar De La Hoya basically had a motto, is he used to promote the way he used to fight. So how he used to just fight fearlessly and go up and fight Hopkins and fight virtually everyone. De La Hoya fought everyone. He didn't dodge. He moved up weight class. He fought the best. He didn't really care. Oscar De La Hoya was a proper fighter like that. However, for me, Oscar De La Hoya of late, promotional, because he's thin, he became very strategical because he doesn't have the fighters he once had. So now he's become very strategical. Look at the way he's matching Ryan Garcia. Look at the way he's matching, what's his name? Virgil Ortiz. He's matching them very carefully because he doesn't have as many fighters. I'll take you back to the days when Oscar De La Hoya had a lot of fighters. And I'm going to take you back to a fighter that's recently retired. One of my favorite fighters, Amir Khan. Oscar De La Hoya had Amir Khan as a cash cow. And he was promoting Khan, and Khan was supposed to be the next big thing and whatever. And Oscar De La Hoya was doing exactly what he did with his career, putting Khan in tough fight after tough fight after tough fight. And Oscar De La Hoya took Amir Khan, first he put him in a fight with Marcus Maidana. He beat Maidana. That was a very tough fight. That was his mandatory. He had no choice. Then he put Khan in with Lamont Peterson. And not just that, he didn't just fight Lamont Peterson. He went and took Khan to Lamont Peterson's backyard. So Khan had to fight Lamont Peterson in Lamont Peterson's backyard. So Khan was literally the money man in that division at that point. He was a massive star, huge name, had the world behind him. And Oscar De La Hoya, what does he do? Takes Amir Khan to Washington to fight Lamont Peterson in his backyard. And Amir Khan, for me, ended up getting jobbed in that fight, getting robbed, I felt. The referee was terrible. The judging was terrible. There was all sorts of stuff going off. Okay. Then Amir Khan set to fight Lamont Peterson in the rematch. And boom, Lamont Peterson fails a drugs test. And guess what happens? In comes an unknown Danny Garcia, who nobody knew at the time who he was. Amir Khan went into the fight as a massive favorite. And boom, what happened? Amir Khan got knocked out. And this was Oscar De La Hoya's matchmaking at the time. And the reason why is because Oscar De La Hoya had so many fighters, even though he looked at Khan as a cash cow, even if Khan had lost, it didn't really matter to him because he had so many other guys. And actually, he benefited because Danny Garcia then became the star. Danny Garcia then became the cash cow. He became the big name after beating Khan. And then Khan and his team took hold of his career, and then Khan started managing his career because Khan realized, if I keep fighting what Oscar De La Hoya puts in with me, then I'm going to, it's going to be very tough for me to get the fights that I want because I'm going to end up losing my credibility. My stock's going to go down. So this is what Oscar De La Hoya used to do. And look, Oscar, that was a great method. What he was doing with Khan was great because Khan was one of the best in that division. So he probably would have beaten most guys. But the point I'm trying to make is this. The point I'm trying to make is this. Is the fact you can't then criticize Canelo for basically following the same motto that you had in your career as a fighter, hence why you took losses in your career. There's a reason why Oscar De La Hoya took losses in his career. The reason why Oscar De La Hoya took losses in his career is because Oscar De La Hoya took risks. And now he's basically telling Canelo not to take those risks and saying that Bivol would beat Canelo 10 times out of 10 if they fought. Well, you are the guy that fought Bernard Hopkins when you were a small guy. Hopkins probably would have beaten you 10 times out of 10. But you wanted to dare to be great. You wanted to prove that you were great. Hence why you fought Hopkins. The same way Canelo wanted to dare to be great, and he fought Bivol. So I don't know where Oscar De La Hoya now is becoming all this promoter where he's starting to think that, we got to manage fighters carefully. Oscar De La Hoya was a savage when it came to promoting back in the day. Like I said to you, that's just one example of Khan. There was many other examples where he put fighters in fights that were And then let's not forget, I know at the time, Amir Khan fought Canelo Alvarez. I know Khan wasn't Oscar's fighter at that point, but nevertheless, he promoted that fight. So again, he slung Khan in a fight which really he shouldn't have even really been in. It wasn't, Khan ended up getting brutally knocked out. So the point I'm trying to make is Oscar's matchmaking with Amir Khan wasn't exactly the best, was it? And that's just one example. There's many others. Now, if you look at Oscar De La Hoya, the way he's managing his fighters now is a complete shift. But Canelo Alvarez, the reason why Canelo Alvarez probably wanted to leave De La Hoya is probably because of the fact that maybe he wanted control of his career, because maybe he didn't like the fact that who De La Hoya was suggesting Canelo should fight, because of the fact that maybe De La Hoya wanted him to fight certain guys because Canelo was his only cash cow now. But Canelo probably didn't like that, and he wanted to take control of his own career. So he wanted to manage his own career and wanted to fight the guys that he wanted to fight to enhance his legacy. But maybe De La Hoya wanted more control. So this is the point I'm trying to make, is that De La Hoya made decisions like that before, again, with fighters, like I just said to you, guys like Khan. That I felt at times he slung in fights that he didn't have to. And especially, like I said, the Lamont Peterson fight where he took him to Washington, D.C. So you can't then turn around and say, well, Canelo Alvarez is fighting Dmitry Bivol, daring to be great, but yet you were promoting Khan v. Canelo. At the end of the day, like, Canelo would have beaten Khan 10 out of 10. Yeah, I know you weren't promoting Khan, but at the end of the day, you made a fight which was a fight that, the other guy couldn't win, and effectively ended Khan's career. So, and when you were promoting Khan, you were putting him in fights, in very tough fights, back to back. So, at the end of the day, for me, De La Hoya has only become like that recently, where he's starting to manage his fighters a lot better because of the fact that hasn't got as many fighters. But let's not forget what this man was early on in his promoting career, and as a fighter himself. This is a guy that used to dare to be great and fight everyone, go up and fight Bernard Hopkins, even though Hopkins was way bigger than him. That's what the man De La Hoya was. De La Hoya was all about fighting the best. He was a proper fighting man. But now he's criticizing Canelo for doing something that he would do when he was fighting. And criticizing Hearn. And the reason why he's criticizing Hearn is because obviously he's just trying to, rub salt in the wounds that it's Hearn's fault that Canelo lost. No. Canelo challenged himself and he got beat. That happens in boxing. But don't go off on Eddie Hearn when you also made mistakes like that when you were promoting fighters. You know, there was guys that you put in the ring where you should have probably managed them a lot better. You should have managed them a lot more carefully. So the point I'm trying to make is that I think it's a bit hypocritical from De La Hoya to criticize Hearn and go at, or not so much criticize Canelo, but criticize the promoter when Oscar De La Hoya has done these same things in his promoting career, and he's done the same things, and then he's accusing her not to have great boxing knowledge. Canelo is making the decisions. Hearn is just promoting the show. Canelo's the one that's choosing to fight Dmitry Bivol, not Hearn. You know, Canelo had an opportunity to fight Jamal Charlo and David Benavidez. Hearn is just providing him opportunity. Canelo's the one that's making the decision. It's not like Hearn is putting a gun to his head and telling you, no, Canelo's in control. Hearn's not in control. When it comes to Joshua, Canelo, Hearn's not in control. Hearn's just presenting a certain fight to Canelo, and then it's up to Canelo to choose if he wants to fight that guy. But don't criticize Hearn because Hearn hasn't got anything to do with it. Canelo's the one that's picking. Canelo had offers from PBC, let's not forget. And he had offers from Eddie Hearn. But he chose Eddie Hearn's offer. That was his own choice because he thought Bivol was a challenge. Bivol was a great fighter. Bivol was a fight that he wanted. You know, he wanted to prove his greatness. That's what we call legacy. And this is something that Oscar De La Hoya did throughout his career. Hence why Oscar's got 5 or 6 losses on his record. Because of the fact that Oscar tested himself. He went up and fought fights which were probably fights maybe he shouldn't have taken. But that's the man that Oscar De La Hoya was. He was a proper fighting man. But you can't criticize Canelo for being like that. You know, you see, you can't have it both ways. You can't criticize Canelo and like I'm sure Oscar criticized Canelo recently for fighting somebody that was a poor level. I think he criticized it when he was fighting Saunders or he was fighting Yildirim or, you know, a sparring partner, I believe, when he fought Yildirim. So you can't have it both ways. You can't then say when he goes and fights someone good, oh, well, look, that was horrible matchmaking. You can't say that. You can't criticize Canelo when he goes and fights someone stiff, loses, and then say, oh, that was horrible matchmaking. But when he fights someone like Yildirim, criticize him, or fight someone like Saunders and criticize him for fighting Saunders. That's basically like you just got like an agenda against the promoter and trying to make out the promoter like he can never win. Or if Canelo's fighting his sparring partner, what, like, do you see what I mean? And then when he fights Bivol and gets beat, oh, well, Canelo, like, Bivol would beat him 10 times out of 10. You know, that's just to me, I don't like that. I think Canelo tested himself against a really good fighter, a light heavyweight that was massive, and he got beat, you know? Now, how does he bounce back from that defeat? How does he bounce back from fighting, how does he bounce back from losing to Bivol? He also said that Bivol wasn't very well known, hence why I personally think that Canelo should have taken the PBC offer, the Jamal Charlo and Benavidez fight. Personally, they're fights that he wins. Secondly, they would have been bigger fights, would have increased his profile. Then after that, if he wanted to go and fight Bivol, there's no guarantee he would have beaten Bivol anyway. But if he then wanted to go and fight Bivol, he probably could have stacked up a bit more though. Now he's ended up losing to Bivol. He's in a bit of a hard spot. But I don't think he would have lost to Benavidez or Charlo. So for me, he should have probably taken that offer, or maybe taken a Spence and Charlo fight. You know? So Canelo actually took the harder option, and De La Hoya is criticizing him for that. But for me, I don't think he should be criticized. I think we should be commended for fighting Bivol. You know, fighting a tough fight. It's almost like we're saying we're now, you know, he's fought a tough fight and we should criticize him for fighting somebody that he loses to 10 times out of 10. It's ridiculous. So let's see. People are also making out like Canelo has literally zero chance to beat Bivol. It's kind of funny. Like 1 minute, yeah, Canelo was gonna beat Bivol easy. It was gonna be an easy fight. Now Bivol beats him all of a sudden, and Canelo literally can't beat him, and he just can't win the fight. And Bivol is just too good. Come on, man. People go from one extreme to another so quickly. It's ridiculous. But yeah, leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.